Today's interview is with Jason Balara. Jason's a veterinarian orthopedic surgeon, so talks all about his job and kind of interesting aspects that go along with that, but also talks about how he started investing in real estate and the success he's had and his goals for the future and what he hopes to achieve with that. So really interesting interview, and it's not every day you get to interview someone like Jason. So enjoy all of today's interview, stick around to the end. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review if you think it's worthy. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate, whatever aspect that is, I'd love to get to know you, see if there's any way whatsoever that I can help you. So you can go to the link in the description down below and sign up there, or you can go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and sign up there. There's going to be a sign-up sheet there. So love to get to know you, love to see if there's any way I can help you. But before all of that, enjoy today's fascinating interview with Jason Balara. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Jason Balara. Did I mess that up? Did I get it right? Close. Or Dr. Jason, or as you said, just Jason, right?
Jason is perfect.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, hey man, thanks for coming to the show. I'm happy we were able to make this happen, and I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. So before we jump into the conversation, do you want to give us an idea about your background, what you've been up to, what your current focus is, just to give us an idea about who you are and stuff?
Sure. Yeah, my background, like yourself, is a little bit different than a lot of people in real estate. I have always had an interest in real estate, but my career is I'm a veterinary surgeon. And so, I went to college, went to vet school. There's a lot of training that goes into that. So it's a good, sort of 12 years of your life to get into it. As I mentioned, I have always been interested in real estate. And so that was kind of always in the back of my mind. As I was going through my, surgery training, had to put some of that on the back burner, both from a financial aspect and from a time aspect. It's like you don't make a lot of money when you're in the training stages of things. And so it was just kind of one of those things I've always thought about. And I have essentially never bought a finished house. I always knew I didn't like renting. So I would buy houses pretty much since I finished really college. I buy houses and sort of renovate them over time. And so my thought was I was always going to flip houses. Like that was going to be my thing that I did on the side. What I've realized with, sort of my veterinary career is there isn't a lot of extra time. And flipping houses is like adding on another job. And so it kind of became almost out of necessity, especially my son's almost 2 years old. And so it was like, I want to spend time with him. And so I started thinking about, what can I do to free up time and stop, as they say, trading time for money. I love what I do. I don't want to stop doing surgery. So it's kind of like, I needed to figure out something that I could do on the side to some degree that could eventually establish passive income and things like that. And so that's what sort of led me down the sort of multifamily syndication path.
Very cool. What's your son's name?
Logan.
Logan, shout out to Logan if he ever ends up watching this.
Awesome.
How many kids? Is he your only kid?
He's our only, yeah. He's our only.
Yeah. I've got a 15-month-old son, so I know about all the craziness as well.
We're pretty close. Yeah. It's fun to watch them grow.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. That's for sure. I think boys are harder than girls, but who knows? So yeah, well, that's cool. Like you said, it's not that often that you meet a veterinarian who's investing in real estate, right? But going back to your veterinary career, was it just if I was to guess, I would say it was a love for animals, but was there any other reason that you decided to go down that career path?
Well, yeah, I think, I think a lot of young kids when you start being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I want to be a veterinarian. And for me, that didn't go away, right? I always wanted to do it. It was really kind of always between that and construction for me, because I've always liked working with my hands. When I started vet school, I actually didn't even know you could specialize. I think a lot of people don't know that they're veterinary specialists. Like, I think there are lots of them in many different specialties. But what I realized was like, okay, here's a specialty within my career that I can use my hands and I can fix things. And, I do a lot of orthopedic things, fixing broken bones and ACL tears and things like that. That's stuff that I do every day. And so it's like construction in a lot of ways. It's like, I already knew how to use a drill. I already knew how to, put things together in sort of the mechanics and the physics behind it. So it was during vet school that I realized that you could be a veterinary surgeon and specialize in only that. And as soon as I sort of figured out that was a possibility, there was no question in my mind. I was like, this is what I need to do. And so then you kind of, track your training towards that. And it takes another 4 years after vet school of specialty training to become, a boarded surgeon. So there's more that goes into it, but that's sort of what got me there. And yeah, I think it started out as a love for animals, but then it became more about, sort of seeing what within that specific within that specific career path, how could I specialize? How could I, do what I enjoy the most? It's like, it's not that far from real estate. Obviously, real estate is a broad category. And before probably a year ago, I didn't really know how many different ways you could do real estate. And the more I hear, like listening to the podcast, reading, the more I hear about the creative things that people are doing. It's actually really cool to listen to, there's so many different things that you could get into. It actually makes it a little bit hard to say, okay, I'm focusing on one thing, and then maybe I add in those other things later just because it sounds so cool and you hear the people that are doing it well and creatively, and it's inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, well, yeah, this sounds like a lot like real estate, right? As vet in general is the practice, whatever, and real estate in general is the need, is kind of the whole bubble, or if you like. But there's all pieces that go into that, 1,000 different pieces, right? There's wholesaling, flipping, syndications, apartment investing, commercial, and all that. I could be here all day and naming all the different types, but then you've got to find one and find a lane and kind of try and stick to it to some degree, right? You can kind of do, you can evolve. A lot of people evolve over time to different ones, but you're trying to do too many stuff. It's like you trying to do, all the aspects of being a vet, right? You probably wouldn't. You could maybe do it, but would you be as good as if you were specialized in something? Yeah.
Very good in one particular area, and then maybe you branch out. But yeah, it's. In my. I'll have friends and family call me and, ask me things about their pets. And I'm like, I'm happy to try, but realistically at this point in my career, what I do is surgery. And so if you're not asking me a surgical question, I'm not the best person to answer that question. And it's like, I tell people all the time, like, you don't want to ask me what vaccines your dog needs, because I don't do that. And I haven't done that for years. So it's kind of like, there are people, your family vet's the one to go to for that. And so it's just like, like you said, with real estate, it's like you wouldn't necessarily go to someone who flips houses professionally to ask them about note investing or whatever, whatever it is. So it's just kind of like figuring out who's the best person to help you get where you want to be.
Yeah. And going back to when you decided, right? So you decided and it didn't go away, and you still had that sort of urge, and thought to be a vet. Did you know initially that it would take 12 years of schooling? I think you said 12 years, right? Did you know that?
Yeah. So I knew 8, right? Because regular college is 4 years, then vet school is 4 years. So I knew that. I didn't know when I was going into vet school that I was going to specialize. So I didn't have a plan for those additional 4 years. And so it wasn't until I realized that I really wanted to be a surgeon that I then sort of said, okay, well, that's going to take, and I mean, to be honest with you, it's a very competitive specialty, and it's getting even harder. And I'm seeing a lot of, I always want to say kids, but just like some of the people I'm training, that are coming out of vet school or doing internships and things like that. And some of them are having to do 2 or 3 internships before their residency. So then it's becoming sometimes, instead of an additional 4 years, it's 5 years, 6 years. And I mean, you could certainly make the argument of when is it no longer worth it, to kind of keep giving up those years. But there's definitely it's a bit of a passion project to it too. It's like, if this is what you really want to do, and the parallels to real estate are there. It's like, okay, so if you say, I'm going to be a syndicator, I'm probably not going to be the top syndicator in 6 months or a year. It's going to take 5 years, 10 years. And so you just have to be committed to the approach to the process, and realize that it takes time to, really be at the top of the game. No matter what it is, really is, no matter what, you don't start at the top of the game. So it's just kind of, and that's a thing, that's probably my biggest struggle in the real estate thing, is that I've been doing surgery for a long time, and now I'm sort of starting this new project, and I'm super excited about it, and I'm working hard, and I'm using all the extra time I have, but like, it's frustrating to not be, like as good at that as I am at surgery. You know what I mean? And I think that would come with anyone switching careers. It's just like, okay, I gotta start at the bottom again and work my way up and realize how to get help and get people, leverage relationships and network and all of that, and partner with other people and everything. It's a lot like the training process I went through to become a surgeon.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well, because like you said there, you've got to look at the long-term plan as well. So not only, like you said, you're not going to overnight be the best syndicator, but also a lot of syndications projects, you're talking a 5-year hold, right? So you're talking 5-year horizon most times, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less. But you've also got to have that long-term vision as well. And like you mentioned, when you start out training to be a vet, you assume 8 years, right, at minimum, right, to
right.
get to where you want to go. So you've also got to, I'm sure you have that long-term vision. I'm sure that it kind of, you had it at that time, and I'm sure it's still there sometimes. Even though you said, right, you're an expert in one space, right? You're an expert at orthopedic surgeon in one space and really good at it, and you've honed your craft, and then now you're starting this other one, and you expect to kind of be at the same level, I guess, and it's challenging.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like you're used to, and so it's I don't, the word that surgery is not easy, but it's like, it's natural now. That's probably the better word. It's like I go into surgery and I've seen enough things and I've done enough surgeries that it's like, there's not a lot of things that are going to surprise me anymore. And even if it does, I have enough collective knowledge from other surgeries to kind of put it together and figure out what to do. So that ease and that natural feeling it's weird when that goes away, right? It's just like all of a sudden here's this other thing, and it's like I don't have that natural ease. And so it's good and it's bad, because it's exciting to learn something new, and it's exciting to look at, okay, if I really think about it, it wasn't easy and natural to do surgery 10 years ago, right? But look at where I am now with that. And so I'm like, okay, if I just hang in there and use that sort of experience of playing the long game and really, I know that in 5 or 10 years, it can be easy and natural to syndicate as well.
Yeah, that's a smart way of looking at it. Out of interest, you said a few times, you're busy and time isn't, always there. What does a daily day look like for you? What does an average day look like for you, you think, as an orthopedic veterinarian? Or is that an average day?
That's what I was going to say. One of the things I really enjoy about it is there's not a standard day, right? So typically your day is structured one of 2 ways, or probably one of 3 ways. Like either you do appointments all day long, or you do surgeries all day long, or you have a split where you do half appointments and half surgeries. Personally, I just always love being in the OR. So the all-day surgery days are my favorite. But the best thing about an all-day surgery day is like having a variety of different things. So it's like I might do, who knows, 4 to 8 surgeries in a day is probably like on an all-day surgery day. That's pretty typical depending on what they are. Some of the things we might do would be like a hip replacement in a dog. We fix a lot of ACL tears in dogs. We might see, fractures are usually something that come in as an emergency type of thing, where they'll come in through the ER and then we fix them. We may also see things like dogs and cats are silly and eat things they shouldn't, and then they get stuck in their intestines and they have to have surgery to be removed. I mean, kids do that. It's not unique to just dogs and cats, but it's probably, I would think, a little more common in dogs and cats that they eat things and then they come in because they're vomiting and can't, sort of pass that. So there's it could be a whole slew of things that we see, and that's really what's exciting about it, is that it is a little bit different every day. And I don't mean to keep harping on these similarities between this and real estate, but it's like, that's kind of what's cool about real estate too, is it's like every deal's going to be different. Every, the process to getting a deal under contract and closing, and then your asset management afterwards, all of that is going to be different, right? So it's no two deals are going to be exactly the same. As you get more and more experienced, you're going to see less and less new, but I think that's a cool thing. And, like, if you've mastered one market, you can always move to another market and start, getting properties in other markets and kind of figure that out too. So there's the ability to stay, I guess, motivated by, sort of the next thing.
Yeah. You never know what's around the corner with real estate.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's ever changing. And like you said, there's no two deals that's the same, and your day's always going to, even though whatever niche you're doing, you're still kind of doing the same thing. I imagine every day is going to be different in that as well. So yeah, it's funny the parallels you can find, right? In a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's really interesting.
And maybe that's, maybe that's what people that come from other career paths are like, yeah, it's the same. We have these things that are very similar, and I guess you liken your new experiences to your old experiences, and so it's kind of a good foundation to be able to build off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said, early on that your interest was either in some kind of construction or going to be a vet, right? They seem kind of different, but then once you explained what you do, there is a lot of parallels in that as well. Right. Where do you think your interest from construction and building stuff was from? Did you have a family that did that stuff?
So yeah, not in my family. Well, part of that is, back up a little bit. I didn't grow up with money. My family, we didn't have a lot of money. I have one brother. We lived with a single mom, so we didn't have money to. We never owned a house or anything like that when I was a kid, and I started working at a very early age because I was like, I want to contribute in some way. And so for some reason, what always struck me was the fact that we didn't own a house. And so it was kind of like we were always living in someone else's house. We lived in apartment after apartment. And so that's my first apartment experience, is actually being a tenant and sort of seeing that side of it. It made me really sort of stuck in my mind that I didn't want to ever rent once I had money, had a job and was able to produce income. And so my goal was always sort of to buy a house as soon as I possibly can. So I bought my first house, I was 25, and it was the year 2000. And so it was a terrible house. It was $99,000. It was rotten. It needed to be completely renovated, but it was all I could afford. It was all I could put, a down payment on. And I was like, well, I'd rather do this than pay rent. And so I was determined to fix it up. So that's really, I got started in construction out of necessity. And then through that, at one point I hired a guy to do the siding on the house, because I don't know how to do that. So I hired a guy. And while he was there, I was doing other things, and he would give me little tips and pointers. And then one day he was like, "You're really good at this. You want a job?" okay, sure. Like, I'm happy to learn that. So I worked with him for a while, just learning the contracting side of things. That was really cool. I worked for an electrician for a few years, that I met through my mom. Just there was things like that came up. And so I always enjoyed it. I always saw the entrepreneurial side of it, where it was like, okay, I can do this stuff. I can have a job, a W-2 job, but I can do this stuff whenever I want. Because we would, like with the electrician I worked for, he had another job, and then we would go work either on the weekends or like at night after the other job and do a few hours here and there. And I was like, it's fantastic. Like, I can make this extra money. And so that sort of sparked my interest in construction. My uncle built his own house. I helped him with that. So there's like all these little things. And really, so I'm from Boston originally. It's cold there. So I basically did enough winter construction to say, yeah, I'll go the vet route because I don't have to work outside. And so it didn't even occur to me at that time that I could move away from the cold. Now I live in Los Angeles, so it's like I would happily be outside all the time, but it's like it just didn't even, at the time, all my family's still there. So it was like, well, I'm not going to leave here. I didn't think about it. And, I was younger and, sort of small town view at that point. And so it didn't even occur to me. I had always wanted to be a vet. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do this, and I can do construction on the side. Like, that was my plan, or I can flip houses or whatever. Because by that time, after working for all those people, I mean, I can build a house, right? I know how to do almost all of the components. So it's like, and I've done it. We've renovated a number of houses doing a lot of the work ourselves. So it's kind of like, I just do that. I know, I know those processes and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think so. Were you, you said you took a job as in construction. You took a job in helping an electrician. Was that on the side of veterinary school as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I worked. I mean, like I said, I started working very young. I've worked most of my life, at least one job. Kind of. The only time I didn't have a job on the side was the last year in vet school, because you're in clinics, and so you really have to be there all the time. But I worked a lot of nights and weekends, even in vet school, just to help with bills and things like that. I just always, that's probably, it's good. I have a very good work ethic. It's bad in the sense that my mindset was always, I just need to work more if I want more money. Now I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to make money and work less, right? That's kind of, it's like I'm getting older. I mean, I didn't have, my retirement plan was to not retire. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but like, really that's what it was. I was like, I like working. I still like working. It's just, I've reached a point where I want it to be on my terms. That's really kind of, I want to work when I want to work and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's what's so awesome about real estate and any investment, really, right? It's just going down that path of realizing, right? When you have that light bulb moment of realizing, like, I can do all this other stuff and not just rely on my, a lot of people talk about their corporate job, right? They just see themselves climbing that corporate ladder, getting to 65, hoping they don't get fired, and then hoping that their 401k or whatever can provide for them for the rest of their lives. And then they have that light bulb moment where, wait a minute, I can take control of my life. I can invest in real estate or stocks or whatever it is and create that life for myself. And maybe I don't have to wait till I'm 65 if I don't want to. I can do it when I'm 45. It's so interesting to me that happened. And of course, I have that kind of, I had a different career path a little bit. I never really thought about retirement, I think, because in entertainment, right, it's not really like we have a 401k or anything like that, right? You just kind of do it, and then you just like hope that everything works out. So when I found real estate, I realized I can take control. That was a really cool moment for me. So
for sure. I mean, it is, you know, taking control is exactly what it is. It's like, I mean, I think even, this year with all the COVID stuff, it hit me even more. It was like, when my son was born, I was already sort of like, my mind was changing, and I was like, look, I know I can make us plenty of money. That's not a problem. But I was working 6 days a week, almost every week. And it's like, I don't want to miss out on him growing up. I don't want, he's too young, obviously, he's not into sports and things like that. But when he is, I want to be able to be there and coach him. Or if he doesn't want me to coach him, I can at least be there and watch. Whatever it is, I just want to be there, and I don't want to miss things because I'm like, I have to work because this is what I'm told I have to do. So it's kind of like, I just, and then COVID came, and I saw, we all saw so many people lose their jobs. And it's like, okay, well, hopefully we're not going to have a lot of global pandemics, but if I was 65 right now, or say 62, and like getting ready for retirement, and then boom, this happens, I lose my job, and it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. In my career, we got busier. We're essential workers, so we can still work, but I don't know that people are home more, so they're watching their dogs. I'm not really sure what exactly happened, but like the veterinary industry kind of exploded during COVID. It slowed down for a month maybe, and then all of a sudden it was like, what's happening? So it's super busy for us, which is great for business. For me, it's good, but it's like there was a period of time that it really sort of hit me when I saw some of my colleagues like genuinely worried that we might have to cut back our days at work and have, less time there. And I was like, I was fine with it. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be able to maintain that mindset of I'm okay if I have to work a little bit less, and not be thinking I won't be able to, you hear it's morbid, but you hear this thing in the real estate world and people talking about investing and things like that, investing in anything, but where they're talking about like 401ks, IRAs, all of that. And it's like, you're hoping that you die before you run out of money. I don't like when it's said that way, it sounds so just not smart, really. I mean, it's just like, that's not the way I want to look. That's not the way I want to look at retirement. I want to look at retirement as a time to enjoy my time, not think, gosh, I hope I don't outlive this money. Like it's just it's just a bad way to look at the future. And it's like, but that's the majority of people. And so it's kind of a scary thing to think about for myself and for my family. But now I'm like, my mind is like, how can I help as many people not run into that? And like in the veterinary field, there is an extremely high suicide rate. It's one of the highest one of the highest rates in amongst many professions. And being in the field, you can sort of see why. It's like a lot of hours, people are overworked, stressed. I'm sure that pet owners don't think that they're not paying a lot, but they're not paying a lot for the same medical care that you would get at like a human hospital, and insurance is covering those costs. So people aren't really seeing that stuff. And so veterinarians, unless you work a ton, you're really not going to make very good money. And so you get in that, veterinarians get in that cycle. If you specialize, you make more money, but you also gave up 4 extra years, like we talked about before. So there's all these stressors and factors as to why I think I also think it's a field full of very compassionate and passionate people. And so it's hard at times emotionally, I think. And so, I feel like it's not a shock to me that there would be a higher suicide rate, but like, if there's something I can do about that, then that's something I want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I think that's unfortunate that that's the case. And I was thinking earlier and I forgot to tell you, it's like, firstly, like, I want to thank you for what you do, man. I love my dog. Like, I'm ridiculously obsessed with my dog. And he's like the tiniest little dog in the world. It's most ridiculous. It's 6'6", 270-pound dog. I walk in the tiniest little dog you'll ever see. But I love my dog to death. He gives me so much happiness and joy. And I love pets in general. So like what you do, I'm sure you, maybe because you do it on a daily basis, you don't realize, but I'm sure you like help so many people out, right? Because they love their dogs, and not just the dogs themselves, right? But other people. So honestly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you do, man. Hopefully you get thanked enough, or maybe you don't. But that's unfortunate as well. That's the situation. Like you said, that the high suicide rate. But you said something there that's so powerful. Is like and I'm guessing what you mean is through syndications, right? Through showing people that you can invest in syndications, get a great return investing in real estate, all the benefits. We can talk all day about that. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But through that, you can show them another way, right? Show them that there is another way, that you don't invest some of your money on the side and keep, building up that investment portfolio through syndications or whatever it is. You can take control of your life. And we talked about it again earlier, right? Taking that control. And it made me think, when you were talking about that it's a few things, right? Your colleagues were worried, right? So for one, you take away that stress. When we have real estate and we have that, it doesn't mean that we want to leave our jobs, right? It doesn't mean that at all for a lot of people. I think it's just that control, that financial freedom, that weight off your shoulders, regardless of anything that happens. I have my real estate and I can sit back and enjoy it.
Right. You're gonna get this cash flow. Just, if you have to, something happens. I mean, stuff happens. People get sick, have family emergencies, things like that. I don't know if you listen to this, but I just listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast with Josh Dorkin, kind of telling his story that happened with his daughter. And it's like, I just can't, that even motivated me more. I'm like, if something happens to my son, I'm not going to work. Like, I'm not going to go sit and I'm going to be there with him. So it's kind of like having that safety net of, passive cash flow is hugely important. So it's just kind of like I think, and so if we can, help other people, whether it's veterinarians or whoever, through syndication, it's like, I think that's actually very important. I think, it's almost providing a service, really. I think and at least in our field, and I assume maybe this is true in other medical fields, there's no business classes in vet school. And so most veterinarians, we are not particularly good at business because we haven't been trained in it. We're good at being doctors. We're good at taking care of animals. We're good at caring, but the business side of it is challenging. And so for me, that's always been an interest as well, because I thought someday I'm going to own my own practice or something like that. I always had that in mind. So it's just kind of seeing the business side of things and maybe how we can help people, free them up from being locked down by their own businesses, even if they open their own. Just, I don't know. There's also a tremendously high student debt, student loan amounts for everybody, but for veterinarians. I mean, I have friends who are coming out of vet school with $300,000 in loans, and it's crazy. And you could say, well, you shouldn't go to vet school then. and honestly, I don't know that I would want my son to go to vet school because for those reasons. Like, I would help him, but it's like, I think it's a scary financial prospect to come out with $300,000 of loans and be making what veterinarians, so they're paying the bulk of their salary in student loans each month. So it's just, there's just got to be a better solution to that.
Yeah, well, that's, just starting out, right? When you're starting career, that's a big freaking weight to carry on your back, right? 300 grand, even if it's 100 grand, that's like, you're starting in such a negative, in your life. Right. Is there another way? There probably isn't, right? That's, if you want to be a vet, that's what you've got to do, right? Or is there?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot. I think the other way is really you need to get in there early and just have a plan early, rather than just deciding, okay, I'm doing this and having, I think it's just, probably to sum it up, better financial education for everybody. I mean, really, like, I don't think that's exclusive to the veterinary world, but I think you're not in elementary school, high school, college, like, unless you specifically go those routes of business, I think most people aren't taught. I didn't get taught any financial literacy in high school or college. And I got taught a good work ethic by my uncle. I got taught, construction things through a various number of people, but I didn't get taught what to do with the money. And so I haven't done smart things with it until really probably 5 years. I'm 45. 5 years ago, I sort of started figuring this out. I had put money in an IRA because an accountant told me, if you put money in the IRA, you'll pay less in taxes, right? So I did that 2 years in a row. I never actually invested the money in the IRA. So it sat there for like 5 years getting zero. You don't get interest in there. It got nothing for 5 years. I'm like, that's just dumb. And I know that now, but like that accountant didn't say, hey, by the way, you need to do something with that money. So it's like, I realized the lack of education. Like I'm almost an overeducated person, but not in that, right? So it's just something that I think like more people need to know about.
Man, I couldn't agree more. And it doesn't matter what I think profession you talk about, right? You see it in your business, but I think it's across the board, right? Whatever, you see people making 500, 700 grand a year, and they go living paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, you live 2 or 3 years frugally and invest the rest of it, and you could be set up for life pretty much from, making 700 grand a year, live off 100 grand, save 600. Okay, you've got to apply some taxes and stuff, but you could save a ton of money and invest that wisely. But I think the system, and I'm not trying to get, political or anything like that, right? But the system is kind of set up for you not to understand finances to some degree, because if everyone's financially smart and frugal, and the economy runs on spending, right? So it's kind of, you need people spending, and if everyone understands that it's not that smart to spend every last penny and then some, well, the economy will kind of take a hit from that, and it will kind of change things. So I think that's why it's not so widespread, right? And I think it's becoming more and more, right? Because there's more and more information through internet, through podcasts, through YouTube, through everything.
More available now for sure.
Yeah, but it's still like it's amazing, like, because we are in the real estate bubble, I feel like, right? And we talk to people that have similar mindsets to ourselves, but you kind of take a step out of it and you realize, how terrible some of those decisions that people are making. And I was there, trust me, I'm not judging anything. I was making those decisions myself, and I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Just spending money on stupid stuff, and it's okay to spend money, but all the it was crazy thinking back about this. But then you live and you learn, right? You get educated and you realize this stuff. But thankfully we're both in this space now, and it's great to kind of have that mindset, to kind of have this. I know this is a real estate conversation, but I really enjoy that other aspects, that all that other stuff that we talked about, because I think people can learn from it. And hopefully if someone listens to this for the first time, never heard anything about real estate, never heard anything about financial freedom, anything about that, they might hear that section and it kind of might enlighten them. I think that would be
right. It just gets you thinking. I think that's what you're gonna probably have to do some of, you're gonna have to seek it out yourself. No one's gonna come to you with the financial knowledge. It's not being, like I said, it's not being taught in schools. It's not something that's like people are trying to get to young people. And so, I hope in some way maybe I can change that. Just, work education through younger people. I'm realizing that, there's so much in the education available for you from a syndication standpoint, right? So you can find book after book after book, podcast after podcast. So it's like, I almost feel like, I know a lot of people in their platforms, they want to educate. I'm happy to try and help and educate other syndicators, but at the same time, I almost feel like maybe my time is better spent trying to educate passive investors, and then also young people how to write it, because just the sheer aspect of time, right? So like, again, I use the example with my son. He's going to be 2 in January. If I invest a little bit of money now for him, just a little bit, in 65 years, like, he's set. That's it. He doesn't even have to do, like, he won't even have to do it himself, but that's what I want to teach him, the other stuff. But it's like, it's very easy if you use the benefit of time, right? And so it's like every decade that you are pushed back, you have to work that much harder. And so it's like, that's what I kick myself about sometimes. Like, I hear a lot of podcasts and they're like, what's the one thing you would tell your younger self? And it's like, every time I'm like, this one's so easy. Just start sooner. Like, that's it. Just start sooner. I started working when I was young. If I had just started putting a very small amount of money away then, it would be so much easier now. But whatever, can't go back in time. But I can hopefully teach some younger people that.
Yeah. How do you think you reach the younger people? Because that's the challenge in itself, right? There's a reason a lot of people don't necessarily start young. I know there's a reason. You could have told me that real estate was an amazing investment. I could make me a millionaire, all this stuff when I was 20. And I'd be like, I don't care. I've got enough money for a beer, and that's, you know what I mean? And any other money that I have, I'm going to spend on more beer, right? You know what I mean? So it's at that age, it's kind of hard to reach people, I think. Have you thought about that? How to kind of get a hold of people?
I think I think it has to be exciting, right? So there has to be some, certainly the classes that you enjoy the most in high school and college are from the best teachers, right? So it's like, you've got to have someone who's passionate about it, teaching it. I think the best thing it can do is come from parents. And I know many parents also aren't educated in this. And I wasn't, like, and I'm still, I'm still learning. I'm certainly don't consider myself an expert, but I'm light years ahead of where I was even 5 years ago, and certainly 10 years ago. It's just, so I think it's good that the information is more readily available, right? And you hear the podcasts with these people that it's like, oh, he's 22 years old, 24 years old, syndicating as 1,000 units, all of this stuff, and I'm like, lucky kid, like really lucky that someone, whether it's just them or like somehow they got started early. But I think it's education, and I think I think young people like YouTube and Instagram and things like that. And so it's like getting, people that are on those platforms, and if you can make it interesting and really show them the benefits, then that's the way to go. You're not gonna reach every single person and every single kid and make them a real estate investor, and that's fine. But if you can reach 10% of them, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Out of interest, have you thought about how you're going to teach your son? Because that's something I wonder myself, right? It's one thing to buy him a property and give him that property, but he might not be interested, right? And also, I think you've got to be careful, in my opinion anyway, that you don't give them too much, right? If you give people everything, right, you don't want to give them, you want to teach them how to do it, right? That's the bet, right? You don't give someone a fish, you teach them how to fish, and then they kind of have that. But also, I know from experience with me, if someone's trying to put something down my throat too much, hey, you've got to do this, right? Especially coming from a parent, I think you rebel against your parents a little bit, right? We thought about how you're gonna, because we both love real estate, and I would love it if you kind of went into real estate and understood it. Have you thought about how to kind of bring that into his life?
I mean, I've thought about it a lot, and my wife and I have talked about it a lot. And I think, like you said, I don't want to try and force feed him anything, because I think that will sort of turn him away from it. I think just making it part of the discussion, right? So I'm obviously he's too young now, but like nobody talked about money. I mean, I knew we didn't have money, but nobody ever talked to me about like, what do we do? What do we do with that money? And so just kind of like, as he starts to have, he already gets gift money and things like that at Christmas time or whatever. But like, as he's starting to get things like that, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, you can have this amount for spending money. You can have this amount we're going to save, this amount we're going to invest, and this amount we're going to give to charity. Like just start it out that way. And I mean, I've read some books on it, and it's like, you have them a part of the conversation in like the household finances and things like that. And it's like, oh, I want this new toy. And it's like, well, that costs, I want an Xbox, that costs money. So let's talk about how we can make that work. I totally agree. I don't want to just give him everything. I think probably that's going to be probably my biggest struggle, is because we didn't have a lot growing up. And I actually think in hindsight, like that's a good thing, because I have a very good work ethic. And so that's probably what I've thought about the most, is how to make sure that he has a good work ethic. He's never going to go without, right? He's never going to be hungry. He's never going to not have clothes. He's never, so I'm not worried about that stuff. Like whatever it takes, I will make sure that he has those things. But I also don't, I mean, we've disappointed some grandparents, because it's like at Christmas time and his birthday, like, what should we get him? Nothing. He doesn't even know. He doesn't know. Like, put money in his college fund. How about books? Like, they're all like, we want to buy him all these toys. Like, I don't really. He doesn't need that stuff right now. It's like he's more excited about the boxes that the toys come in, and as he shows interest in things, then fine. Like, he loves trucks right now, so it's like we're talking about maybe for his birthday we're gonna get them this ride on truck thing. But it's like it's just, I'm not gonna try and force him to have 1,000 toys either. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know that I know the answer to the question, and if you figure it out, please let me know. I think it's going to be a challenge that we'll face as he grows, but it's an important challenge, I think, that we will have an emphasis on, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't know the answer either. That's why I like to ask people to try and, I'm sure we'll figure it out somewhere along the line, I'm sure, right? Yeah. Well, you said you've done, so how many flips have you done out of interest?
Oh, probably, and I'm not maybe 8 or 10, not a ton. I never did it as a full-time job. I owned a triplex at once, fixed up all those units and everything so it's always been kind of a slow flip model, house hacking, things like that. And then we've moved a fair bit. So I can't buy someone else's renovation. I don't trust what's behind the walls. I don't, it's kind of just having worked in construction and seen what gets hidden and seeing even, some of the houses we've renovated, what's behind there. I kind of like to do it myself.
Maybe talk about, I was going to ask you about your favorite flip, but that sounds interesting, a triplex. So first of all, all of these, you bought them to live in? So you do you live in them, live-in flip, or?
Yep, live-in flips. The triplex we lived in for a time and then moved out and rented all 3 units. So yeah, all of them were live-ins. A number of them got rented out at one point or whether it was before we lived there or after we lived there. So they all became rentals in some regard.
So the triplex, maybe talk us through that one quickly so we can talk about, we talk about plenty of other stuff. Let's get some real estate into there, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
But don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the conversation. Just for anyone who's like, let's talk about real estate.
Like, I thought this was a real estate podcast. I'm talking about their kids. Yeah. It was, so the triplex was, I think we bought it in 2005. And so kind of right, maybe as the market was sort of really ramping, we went through that crazy time before the Great Recession, bought it in 2005. It was in a suburb of Boston. So we bought it, we fixed up all the units, and then we lived in the middle unit, the second floor, and then rented out the top and the bottom. It was challenging, probably for a couple reasons. One, it was actually when I was starting I was just done with vet school and starting my surgical training, which is very time intensive. So it was a little bit of a challenge there. Just sort of putting the right time into selecting tenants, I think, is probably the hardest part. We had very nice tenants, but I didn't really do a lot of screening. And so it was kind of like, didn't have good systems in place and things like that. And so we, went through a couple of different tenants. We didn't evict them. They were just like, we have to move. Okay. So it was just like, we had vacancy a fair bit, that made it hard. I think, so ended up selling that after a couple years, really in large part, this is the sad part of this story, was because I bought that with my first wife. We got divorced. So this was like, we just got rid of that as part of the divorce. The good thing about it was the timing, in that we sold it, I think, in 2007. And so right after that it was like within 6 months after selling it, it was when like the real estate crash really started. So it worked out well. I think I've been, in some ways, made some really good decisions. I think I've also gotten lucky a couple times. The first house I bought when I was 25, and that was in 2000, sold that in, I think, 2005 for basically 250% of what I had bought it at, and managed to, like, we refinanced it a couple times, paid off my first wife's school loans with that house. Like, we just did a lot of things with it. So it was a very good investment. The triplex was good. We made a small amount of money, but it wasn't anything big because it was a fairly short period of time that we held it. And then I didn't buy another house until sort of after I was done with all my training and things like that. So the triplex was cool. You know, again, if you could go back in time, like, I would have bought 10 of those in Boston. It would have been, right now, they would be worth so much money. Or really, if I could go back in time, I would have bought 10 of them in 2010, like when, but, you know, didn't know what was going to happen. So it's just kind of like, I think I got semi-lucky in the timing of selling that property, just in the sense that it was right before the crash.
Yeah, interesting. You've been around for a while. If you started in 2000, you've seen a few things, I guess,
Yeah.
right at that time.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling-related real estate questions. And the first one is the one that always seems to catch people out, so be aware. What would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would that be?
I think I'd have to go. So this was actually, when I first got Instagram, my Instagram handle was El Coco Blanco, which is just white chocolate. It's not even how you really say white chocolate in Spanish, but it was just an inside joke with my wife had called me white chocolate at one point. It was just some silly, like, I don't even remember the origin of this story. So probably that's what I would go with. Okay, if I had the rest of the name.
How do you say it again?
El Coco Blanco.
El Coco Blanco. Okay, El Coco Blanco. As you can tell, I'm not very fluent in Spanish.
That's definitely not fluent Spanish. But I apologize to any Spanish speakers that are listening. I know that's not right, but that's just kind of how it evolved.
So every wrestler has a special move, something that they're really good at. And once they hit that special move, the match is over usually, right? So what is your special move in real estate? What is your strength, do you think?
I think for me, probably my strength is going to be on the construction asset management side. I really think that's some of the, you know, the deal finding and acquisition, all of that I'm learning. And I think, you know, I like math. So underwriting is I think is a strength, but I think my real strength is managing the asset in a large part through a construction phase. I think, you know, sort of value add and things like that will be something that'll have a lot of value to add to the process, because I've seen so much in construction, and I won't be flying blind when the contractors are saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And, you know, I understand the systems behind the walls and all of that. So I think that really that's probably going to be my big strength.
Yeah, I was thinking, as you were saying, talking about the construction experience, that's a great skill to have learned, right? You know, you got paid for it at the time, but more than anything, that's the education that you have is.
Yeah. What I mean, it's what I got paid for it is nothing in comparison to what it has saved us on our own remodels. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the stuff I've done myself it saved us so much money.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career?
Probably realistically the house we're in right now. So we bought it to renovate it. It had stucco siding, as most houses in California do. But it's an old house. It had never been renovated. So it needed like all new windows and things like that. So initially the plan was we were going to strip the drywall on the inside, re-insulate, change out the windows and things like that. When we did that, it turned out that there was a fair bit of termite damage. And when we were trying to take out the old windows, the stucco was getting damaged. And so it was really starting to look like it wasn't going to look good, right? The outside just wasn't going to look good. I don't love stucco. I wanted hardy plank siding anyway. And so that was probably the biggest thing, is it's like, I just bit the bullet. We tore everything off. So we had a house, we always joked it was a house on sticks, because it was literally just the framing with the roof still on for a while before we got everything resheathed. So it was, we did not intend to do that going into it. I think with a lot of the other renovations, I've actually been pretty lucky and haven't hit too many big snags, but that was probably the biggest in terms of time and money and, you know, just kind of headache. That was a big one.
Yeah. Sure it'll work out in the end, hopefully. So,
yeah, I mean, it's fine now. It's done. We've got walls again and everything. So yeah, it's good.
There's no wind coming through or rain coming through.
Right, exactly. No, you could see from the street all the way to the backyard. So it was pretty open for a while.
So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
I mean, yes, I think you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, I've always been interested in real estate in some capacity. I think that I had a lot of the self-limiting beliefs that people talk about where it's like, oh, I don't have the money, I'm too old, I don't have the time, whatever it is, making up excuses. And so I've probably been standing on that top rope for a couple of years right now, just trying to find just the perfect time to jump in. And then the thing that really did it for me is my son. I mean, really, I'm very big on, you know, you saw my Instagram, I'm very big on know your why. And that's one of the things that has struck me so much in all of the, you know, books I've been reading and things like that. It's like, it feels like a lot of times for some people, it's like an afterthought. You have to know why you're doing this. But for me, that's the first thing. That's what did it. That's what made this be so important, is that I want to spend time with him. And that's really it. I want my time to be used in the way I want it to. And, you know, that's to spend with my family. So that's what got me off the rope, I guess.
Yeah, the why is a powerful thing. It just drives you to understand why you're doing everything, to, you know, push you forward when times aren't, you know, the easiest, right? It's not always going to be rainbows and roses the whole time. So you've got to have that strong why, and it's so powerful. Yeah, and I completely understand where you're coming from with your son, because I feel very much the same way. Well, hey, Jason, thanks so much, man, for this. It's been a really fun one, right? I don't think you always need to talk about real estate itself, like the technical aspects, the mechanics of everything, to inspire people. Hopefully, like I'm inspired from this conversation myself, and hopefully it kind of fires a fire. I don't know if that's the saying. Fires a fire inside some people, to kind of, you know, take control and to move forward with real estate if they've been thinking about it, if they've never understood it before. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, before we go, where can people find out more about you? You know, maybe your social media, email, website, all that good stuff. Where can people?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is at Lark Capital. Facebook is at Lark Capital Group. I'm on LinkedIn, Jason Balara. They can email me, jason@larkcapital.com. Really anything. I think all the links are on the Instagram page too. I think it's all there. So probably the easiest thing is just shooting me an email. And I'm like, this conversation's been great. I just like talking about it, and it's super cool to talk to people that are getting into it. I'm new to the game, and so one thing that I think, you know, I can maybe help people with that might be struggling in the starting point is I'm hitting all those roadblocks. I really, it's like the things that I've come up against that I expected to be easy that haven't been. It's like starting a business in a pandemic is a different thing. So it's like just sticking with it. And, you know, I know the pandemic has changed business for a lot of people, but I think I would say that's, you know, probably right now something I think has been a big impact for me, and having my why has helped me sort of push through those hard things.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. Well, I'll include all those links in the description and in the show notes so people can find you there. But thank you so much, man. It's been a fun one. Absolutely fun. I love that. It was a lot of fun, man. I'm glad we connected. Glad we were able to make this happen. Thank you, man. Have a great day.
Awesome. You too.